Wow, what beautiful films. Welcome, everyone. We have a full house today. Bersijn and Margriet and Paulo and Ben. Really happy that you could all join us today. Um, wow. Okay, first, I think I have a question for Ben. Oh,
Okay,
if he's
I'm here
sticking around. Yeah,
getting some more
perfect.
light.
No worries. The images of your film are absolutely beautiful. I understand you filmed them in Somerset. How did you manage to create this unearthly landscape?
Um, yeah, well, Somerset is my where I come from originally in the southwest of England, and I started by filming in this cave system which I used to go when I was a kid called Wookey Hole, um, and it's kind of lit by these different colored lights because it's a tourist attraction or attraction for kids, you know. Um, so it has these really wild kind of colorings. But then I couldn't kind of get all the images that I had in my head. I couldn't find them all in the actual cave. So some of them are created with computer CGI, and then I film them off the screen and play with them a bit. And then some of all the ice cave stuff was shot in my the freezer compartment of the fridge. So it's a very small cave. And luckily, my freezer's quite bad, so it grows quite quickly. And I use my bike lights to light it with this sort of red and the blue, and so yeah, it's a kind of mix of real caves and some fabricated caves, and then and the stuff above ground is kind of woodland in Somerset. Yeah.
Wow, wow, the magic of film. You work with texts by Mark von Schlegel. I think you've worked with him
Hmm.
before. Can you tell me a bit about that collaboration?
Yeah. We started working together actually 10 years ago for a film I made called Slow Action. Um, and that film, in a nutshell, is a kind of another speculative fiction based far in the future where sea levels have risen and there's different societies living on small archipelagos and islands. And then we made a second film called Earth, which is in the Biosphere 2 in Arizona. And then this is the third part of a kind of trilogy of films, which have shown together as an installation of three works. And yeah, it's I just yeah, I had this idea of wanting to make these kind of speculative science fiction films, and but didn't feel like I had actually all the linguistic skills necessary to write the narration. And I'd read some of Mark's books and really liked them, and just got in touch, and he was happy to collaborate. And the process is a very nice, generally online collaboration. So we're sending emails back and forth to each other. It usually starts with book lists. So he's saying, you need to read Jules Verne, and I'm saying, okay, can you read this book by I don't know, Ursula Le Guin or someone like that? And then so it's a kind of back and forth, and then these two species trying to communicate with one another. So that was my kind of starting point, and then I give that to Mark, and then we sort of play back and forth with that.
Yeah, a beautiful film, definitely.
Thank
Paulo,
you.
I have a question for you. You have a background as an architect, right? What
Yeah.
interested you in these tree houses, this activist group?
Well, I worked on this video in the context of survey of the landscape between the Rhine and the Meuse, the two rivers. And the framework was set by Bas Prinsen, who's a photographer and who also has a background in architecture. And I picked that site as I don't know, because I think it's just relevant because of the layered meanings and the coexistence of environmental catastrophe and activism and like hope and despair to, because there have been also some dramatic moments in the forest, and also of course, like as you said, the tree houses, but
The houses, I mean, not the activists themselves. Is that because of privacy, or is it a different reason?
Of course, it's both. It's both. I like actually to just show the traces that they leave, and these traces, of course, also imply a human presence. So maybe you don't even need to see the persons, but at the same time, it's also to protect activists who are chased and in all kinds of ways in the forest. Like, I don't know how much it's paranoia and how much it's real, but apparently there are all kinds of sensors to detect their presence, also their mobile phones and so on. So they take all the measures possible to prevent their identity to be recorded.
Maybe a quick question to Margriet and Persijn. Our disconnect from nature and this fraught relationship is central to a lot of your works, I think. I was wondering, maybe this has changed, or your perspective has changed somewhat now with the COVID crisis, or what impact does that have on you on this issue?
Actually, it only has been deepened in a way, or maybe more connected to, since basically most of our work is in relation to nature as being established on our screens and on, like, in the media and in fiction, etc. So now that at the moment we are talking to each other and having this live conversation and connecting to another world, like Ben Rivers' world or Paolo's world, then you immediately feel this connection in a more visible way. While we are now all connected all the time with our screens, and before it would be just like occasionally, but now it's even more that our gaze is directed by the screen momentum that we have with each other and with the forest and with nature. And
something else is also happening, which is, I mean, it's just a practical thing, but we see it a lot now. We live in Holland. There's not a lot of forest nature, but we often go to it and we suddenly are not alone anymore. Yeah. There's so many people going to the forest and going to nature suddenly. And that is definitely because of COVID. It really changed like the perspective of people. In a way, that is a good thing, of course. Although I must say, sometimes it's a bit like, it's really direct because it's suddenly very busy in the forests.
Yeah. Do you think a virtual forest could ever be a replacement, or is it impossible?
No, it could be a different place, but. Yeah. I think, like what you can create within the sort of digital virtual worlds are worlds that are, maybe they connect to worlds that we know, but they are still unknown, but they are. So, I mean, if you would make a virtual forest that actually would function in a way, it would not function, of course, as like a real forest. But I think like trying to sort of like dig into that, what is a real forest, and to sort of like maybe mimic it and see what happens then is a very interesting part of like discovering what we can do within the virtual world.
Yeah, but also I think a forest is always fictional as well, like an actual forest. I mean, it's based in our fairy tales, and it's also
and also in our reality, it's still
in our
fictional.
realities. I mean, the place that it has in our fictions also forms the way these forests exist. For instance, in the Białowieża forest, the primeval forest, it's being guarded, and because of its ancient status, and that brings with it also like tree life, although it might be cut, but the politics that goes with like constructing a forest is the same as like the real forest. So I think it's always like some kind of combination between fictional and real life forest. I don't think there's much like polarity into that, in that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'd love to continue this conversation, but I've been told that we have to end it. We can continue in the rooftop bar, however, if anyone wants to join. Yeah, for now, thank you so much for joining this Q&A and for allowing us to show your beautiful films. It was a pleasure.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Great films.
Bye.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nu stoppen.
Nee, kijk daar.